Hey, welcome to Zach's Tech Turf. Usually on my channel, I'm reviewing new PC parts and tech products, but today we're gonna take a trip down memory lane with the GTX 480 and seeing how well it holds up in 2017. If you're looking for the best GPU to buy right now during the crypto mining crisis, check out this video here. But for now, let's get into it. The NVIDIA GeForce GTX 480 was originally released in March of 2010 and came in at a price around $500. Back in 2010, NVIDIA released this card to directly compete with the Radeon 5870, even though that launched at just $379. To get a perspective of just how old the GTX 480 is, check out this clip of Linus Tech Tips reviewing the card. Now that's a throwback if I've ever seen one. Now moving on, I don't want to get too much into the details of the GTX 480. It's been out for quite a while now, but I do want to go over both the power consumption and how easy it is to get a hold of in 2017. As you might remember, the GTX 480 was an extremely power-hungry card back in the day and also put out a ton of heat. I've seen reports of the GTX 480 consuming alone over 300 watts of power, which is just crazy compared to modern-day high-end cards. At the time of launch, NVIDIA recommended a minimum 600 watt power supply, and it requires both an 8-pin and 6-pin PCI connector from the power supply. What's even more interesting is I found multiple GTX 480s on eBay for like 20 to 50 bucks. If this old beast only cost $20 in 2017, then it might be a good idea to put in a used PC build. So let's run some benchmarks. The testing platform I'll be using today is my main gaming PC, which you guys have seen 1,000 times. It's running an i7 4790K clocked at 4.0 GHz, 16 GB of DDR3 RAM, and an MSI Gaming 5 motherboard. Now more than likely, if you do pick up a GTX 480, you're not gonna have a system like that, but this way we'll be able to see exactly how much we can get out of this card. So let's cue the benchmarks. The first game I tested was none other than Counter-Strike Global Offensive. No, it's not a modern title and certainly not graphically demanding, but I know a ton of you play it, so I had to include it. In 1080p and high settings with anti-aliasing turned off, I averaged 224 FPS. Clearly, you can raise the settings like anti-aliasing or even push higher resolutions, but who wants to do that in CSGO? Next up, I tested another popular online first-person shooter, Overwatch. Here in 1080p and high settings, I averaged 90 FPS, staying well above that 60 FPS threshold. Keep in mind I locked the resolution scale to 100% so it was a true 1080p and not fluctuating based off current performance. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds was up next because let's face it, what kind of benchmarking video doesn't include this in 2017? This one really pushed the GTX 480, and not really because it's so graphically demanding or anything, it's just not an optimized title yet, as we are all well aware of. In 1080p and low settings, I only averaged 32 FPS and it did shoot down to 14 at one point, but I honestly felt like this was playable throughout. 2017's version of Prey was up next, and I should honestly include this more in my benchmarking videos. In 1080p and medium settings, I averaged a nice 49 FPS while only dropping to 39. If you absolutely have to maintain 60 FPS, you could definitely do this on low settings, but this is where I would personally game at. Dirt 4 is another 2017 title I benchmarked, and if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you go check out my Gaming on a Sunday Morning series where I reviewed this game. In 1080p and medium settings, I was able to average 56 FPS and it was silky smooth. Finally, the last game I tested was For Honor. This is another game that I should benchmark and honestly play more often. I know the player base has tanked since it launched, but it still feels like a fun game whenever I do benchmark it. In 1080p and low settings, I hit that pitch perfect 60 FPS average while only dropping down to 44. So as you can see, the GTX 480 matched up pretty well with newer titles, and you have to give this thing some credit. One thing to note is I tried to run Forza Horizon 3 to get a DirectX 12 exclusive game on the list, but it wouldn't even run and I was spammed with graphics card isn't good enough errors. Well, that wraps up my GTX 480 down memory lane video. If this thing only costs 20 bucks on eBay, then that's actually pretty tempting to buy as a temporary card while we wait for this crypto mining crisis to pass, but only if you have a beefy enough power supply. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please drop a like down below to help support my channel, and as always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more Zach's Tech Turf videos.